Hello everybody, Mad Dog here. Sorry for the lateness of this video. It's just been a weird few days where I was having trouble finding motivation to do some things. I guess you could call it an attack of depression, but I'm doing better. Um, so I promised that today would be about volcanoes. I will share what facts I know about volcanoes and some things I know about famous or infamous volcanoes that have erupted over the course of Earth's history. Now, for those of you, most of you should already know what a volcano is, but for those of you that you don't know, that don't know, for those of you that do not know, there we go. This is a definition from Wikipedia. A volcano is a rupture in the crust of a planetary mass object, such as Earth, that allows hot lava, volcanic ash, and gases to escape from a magma chamber below the surface. That's pretty much what it is. There's not much more to say about it. There are different types of volcanoes. There are different types of volcanic eruptions. If you're familiar with what goes on in Hawaii, that is a basaltic volcanic eruption originating from what's called a mantle plume or hot spot underneath the Earth's crust. So what's happening there is that the volcanoes that are being formed in Hawaii are not generally explosive volcanoes. They're the magma that's fueling those volcanoes is very low, very high viscosity, very fluid, and the gas content is relatively low. There's still gases, but the gas content is relatively low, so there's not as much pressure built up. So they flow very readily. The lava from those volcanoes flows very readily, and they form what's called a shield volcano, which, as the name describes, should be kind of a dome-shaped volcano that looks like a shield. A very common type of volcano. You'll find it everywhere. You find those types of volcanoes everywhere on Earth. The tallest mountain, if you've measured from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the mountain on the planet Earth, is actually Mauna Loa, which is one of the volcanoes in Hawaii. It's the tallest. It's if you do measure it from the bottom of the ocean. I mean, obviously, the tallest mountain on Earth, as measured from sea level, is Mount Everest. But we're not talking about Mount Everest right now. Mount Mauna Loa currently is not an active volcano. It's dormant. But there are other volcanoes on the big island of Hawaii that are very active, such as the most active volcano on the face of the Earth, which is Kilauea. It's been constantly active for over 30 years now. And so that's pretty impressive, you know. It's been very easy to document how those kind of volcanoes work because of things like Kilauea and eruptions from Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea that happened before Kilauea erupted. So there's one type of volcano for you and some famous volcanoes associated with that. Excuse me. Those kind of eruptions, by the way, if they're still basaltic lava, but they have a higher gas quantity, you're going to see things happen called cinder cones, where they have a vent just like those volcanoes, the shield volcanoes do, but they also have a cone where pumice and gases erupt out explosively. A very prominent example of that is the Sunset Crater in Arizona, which, for those of you that live there and are interested in that kind of thing, I would recommend going up there and taking a look. The lava flows are excellent. The volcano itself is fascinating. There's a whole volcanic field up there. It's called the San Francisco Volcanic Field, and there are multiple volcanoes like Sunset Crater, varying in age, but they're all related. Which again, one of the hypotheses for that is it's being caused by a hot spot, a mantle plume, which is moving gradually. Well, the crust moves. Basically, the crust is moving this way. So the mantle plume moves under the crust this way, or vice versa. The crust is moving this way, so the mantle plume moves this way. So that's what you got there. I think I got that right. If I didn't, please let me know It's been a while since I've studied this stuff. I know what a mantle plume is, but I don't remember which direction the continent is drifting. So that's my problem. There is a very funny story associated with one of the volcanoes in Arizona. It is called SP Crater. Basically, shitpot crater. If you look at it from above, it does look like a toilet disaster happened because of the way the lava flow came out of it. If you want to look at that, please look that up. There's some amusing or interesting, fascinating, I mean, even pictures of that particular volcano. So that's one type of volcanoes. Those are the ones that are less explosive, where the lava is more fluid. Very common type of volcano, as I said. And then, of course, you have the more explosive volcanoes, which can come in different types. You still can have the explosive volcanoes be at least somewhat basaltic, but have more gas. Those erupt in what's called strombolian eruptions. And you're going to see examples of that would be such as Mount Stromboli in Italy or Mount Etna, which are, again, very active volcanoes. Another type of volcano is called a stratovolcano. Now, a stratovolcano is usually a volcano formed through explosive eruptions. The magma type is different, as I was talking to you earlier about the different types of extrusive igneous rock. So the lava, the magma that makes up a stratovolcano is very different from that which makes up a shield volcano or a strombolian volcano or cinder cone. The eruptions that come from stratovolcanoes are the most dangerous in terms of how, because they are so explosive. The magma does not flow as readily, so more gas can build up in the magma. As more gas builds up in the magma chamber, more pressure is exerted on the top of the magma chamber until finally it reaches a critical point and the pressure must be released, which is usually released explosively. There are innumerable examples of those types of volcanoes in Earth's history. Of course, the most famous one that probably most of you are familiar with is the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. My friend Aaron says he could talk about it for hours. I could probably talk about it for hours just myself because I know a lot about it. Another one that was very, very famous that happened within the last 30 years was the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, which actually did have an effect on the world's climate to a degree. It was a more explosive. It's one of the most explosive eruptions in the last 100 or so years. Still not one of the biggest in Earth's history. One of the biggest volcanic eruptions in Earth history happened right here in Colorado. There is a caldera, which is a collapsed volcano in southeastern Colorado. It's called La Garita Caldera. And it erupted I want to say about 26 million years ago. I could be wrong about that number. I'm not looking at it right now. But it was, some people say, the largest volcanic eruption in Earth's history. Other very large ones, the Yellowstone caldera, has gone through many eruptions, all of which are among some of the largest in Earth's history. There was an eruption about 10,000 years ago or so, the eruption of Mount of Toba in Indonesia, which some scientists believe that eruption caused the human race because of the amount of gas and debris that was released in the eruption. It altered the world's climates to such a degree that it caused the human race to enter a genetic bottleneck where we almost went extinct. Luckily, that didn't happen, but almost everyone alive today is related to one of the survivors of that eruption, one of the people that was actually able to survive the after effects of that eruption. That's mitochondrial Eve, if you're familiar with that at all. Another famous volcanic eruption from the same area happened in 1815, Mount Tambora. Very violent. Again, one of the most violent in recorded history. Released enough material into the atmosphere that it created what's known as the year without summer throughout the northern hemisphere. So the summer of 1815 into 1816 was miserable because of that. Summer of 1815 or 1816 was miserable because of that. Another one from that same area was Krakatoa, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Other volcanoes of that same order. Mount Vesuvius in Italy. In AD 79, it erupted and destroyed at least 3 Roman villages: Pompeii, Herculaneum, and there was one other, I don't remember the name of it, but of course the most famous is Pompeii. The type of eruption that happened at that time was witnessed by a man named Pliny the Elder, who described it in his writings. That type of eruption, where a great volcanic eruptive cone or eruption cloud, whatever you want to call it, goes up into the air and then collapses back down, straight up, and then almost collapses almost straight back down, is called a Plinian eruption. Those can be very destructive, obviously, because a lot of times when the eruption column collapses, it creates what are called pyroclastic flows, which are basically avalanches of superheated rock, gas, ash, debris that run down the side of a mountain. Another one of the dangers of a volcanic eruption like that is if it happens in a volcano with a glacier on top, the glacier will melt. And of course, that glacier, that melt will become a flood. That's called a lahar, which is another type of volcanic debris flow associated with a melted glacier. There have been examples of that through many volcanic eruptions, some of them in the Andes, most of them actually in the Andes. If Mount Rainier in Washington, which is still active, it's dormant, but it is considered a volcano that will erupt at some point. And it has a tremendous quantity of glaciers on top of it. They will melt. And if that happens, pretty much every village, every town in the river valley between Mount Rainier and the Puget Sound is going to get wiped out. There's actually evidence of an eruption at Mount Rainier that happened in the past, where a debris flow, a lahar, went from the mountain all the way to the Puget Sound. So that's what those kinds of things can do. Other examples of previous volcanic calderas, for my people that live in Arizona, if you want to go east of Phoenix, there is the Superstition Mountains. Multiple volcanic calderas overlapping up there. They are about 45 million years old. About the same age as actually the Chiricahua Mountains in southeastern Arizona, which are also volcanic in nature. If you want to go out to the Superstition Mountains and take a look at that stuff, you're going to see some interesting things. There's evidence out there to indicate that when it was still active, geologically, that it may have been like Yellowstone, with geysers and other geothermal features as well. But it's very worth looking at. If you remember me talking about Apache tears, you're going to find in some areas out there in the Superstition Wilderness Apache tears in the rough. You're also going to find evidence of perlite. I've seen these things. I couldn't tell you exactly where they are, but I have seen them. It's fascinating. There's actually one place where you can see how the volcanic debris looks like shock waves from a nuclear blast, which, if it was blown out explosively, obviously that's what it's going to look like. Anyway, volcanoes interest me. They're fascinating things. And I've told you a little bit of what I know about them. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I didn't cover. I know there is, but this is not supposed to be in-depth. This is just me sharing some things I'm interested in. So there's my thing about volcanoes. What am I going to talk about next time? I don't know yet. I got some ideas. I could talk about hurricanes. Another thing I'm interested in. Excuse me about that. But we'll see. I've talked about tornadoes, so why not talk about hurricanes? But we'll see about that. Then there's some other things I have some ideas about too. And hopefully I don't have another bout of, another bout of depression like I did last week. So anyway, this is Mad Dog signing off. I hope you all have a good rest of your week. I also hope you all have a good weekend coming up, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.